when he asked me to talk to you, I was going to talk just about how to write a paper, but there's actually more than that.
Yeah. Okay, yep.
All right, thank you. Anyway, so one of the things that has concerned me is about the happiness index of physicians. And when I look at this group, okay, you're young, and so you're natural born, full of energy and enthusiasm. Grab a handout sheet and sit over here, please.
Oh, okay.
Here's a chair. I'm Steve Lippmann. I don't guess I know, what's your name?
It's IJ.
Okay,
Dr. Lippmann is gifted in language.
Okay,
Try it.
Yan Jesu.
Yeah, I'm Jason.
okay, well, anyway, I've been concerned about physicians your age are very optimistic or just starting, but if you look at the middle-aged group, divorce, burnout, dissatisfaction, early retirement, and even if you look at the clinic where I work to this day, in fact, I've got clinic in a couple of hours. The old doctors are happy as a clam. I mean, my wife sometimes has said to me, "What are you going to do today?" I said, "Well, I'm going to go to clinic." She said, "No, what are you going to do? Oh, what are you going to do for happiness today?" "I'm going to go to clinic, or I might write a paper." And she said, "No, what about fun?" So, well, there's nothing more fun than seeing a patient and writing a paper. There isn't anything more fun. Do I want to go fishing? No, I don't want to play golf. You know, I want to do something that's enriching my brain. And not that everybody has to agree with me, but as a physician, you're already in the mode of education is your enrichment. And if you foster that, you're going to be happy probably the rest of your life. And if I look at my dad, my grandfather, my uncle, they were all loved their practices to most of my older relatives died while they were still seeing patients. And they were not complaining about it. And I don't, like when I look at my sister, who's 10 years younger than me, she retired before I did. What does that tell you? So did her husband. And he's 11 years younger than me. Crap, he wasn't having a good time. Anyway, and I think that writing can be part of the deal that can help. You know, we see all this burnout and stuff like that. So if you have relatively less happy doctors, that means you're doing less good patient care. Again, I've talked to my wife. I wake up in the morning usually and I'm thinking, which paper I'm going to write today, or which paper, oh, I wonder how that patient did that I gave blah, blah to, or I'm going to see this guy tomorrow. I wonder how they're doing. I'm already excited. My life is an excitement every day. And that's what I'm hoping to impart to you, and that maybe you can get some of that built into your lives. And it's also, you know, if you just do one thing, it gets boring. If you do two things, well, that's a little better. If you do three, that's better than two. So if you say, I see patients, I teach a few doctors, I take care of a few patients, and now I'm also going to write a paper once in a while. And anyway, that's part of the deal. It's been very gratifying for me, and enriching. It also, let's see, do you feel like getting up every night and reading the New England Journal of Medicine?
No.
Probably not, because it's just too complicated. But if you read the stuff you want to read, I guess I'm going to turn it to a personal. For me, I don't read the New England Journal of Medicine very often. I don't even read the American Journal of Psychiatry, but I write a paper, maybe 20 or 30 per year. And that gets me on the topic I want to learn about. That's relevant to me. I don't have to read an article about TMS if I'm not using it. But if I'm interested in what I do, and I write about that. I like vaccination refusal, teenage girl suicide, isolation in America. I've written 2 papers recently on school violence and shooting. Well, those are things that I can apply. And I was on the radio just a month ago talking about that on a big radio broadcast, and they've invited me to come back and do another talk on some other stuff. I forgot what they want this time, but something else. Oh, they wanted about free medical clinics. anyway, so anyway, that's just been wonderful for me. And just it's kind of examples of where once you publish a paper, you get an inappropriate amount of credit for it. If you ever, you don't read the newspaper, but I do. Okay, you read the newspaper and they'll say, Dr. So-and-so is 92 and he died after 50 years of practice. He or she was in their clinic 6 days a week and they taught 500,000 patients over their lifetime. And they were there on the weekends and on Christmas Eve. And they published one paper in the Kentucky Medical Journal. Now, wait a minute. They both got the same amount. So in his whole life of 90 years of practice, he was a clinician, blah, 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 and he published one paper. So if you publish one paper, who's going to remember that I gave this lecture in a year and a half? I mean, these 2 or 3 might because you were here. Huh?
I said I would.
Okay, these 4 people might, but even those guys might not remember it. So, okay, you 4 might, but that's 4 people in the entire world. If you publish a paper, it's in Index Medicus, it's in Medscope or what Medscape, it's in PubMed.
Yep.
You can read it in India, you can read it in Indonesia, you can read it in Russia, you could read it on the front if you have your computer in Ukraine. You could say, I want to read Dr. Lippmann's paper on school violence. You won't, but you could. And so you get an inappropriate amount of credit. Another example that maybe not too relevant, but so I did a residency in Chapel Hill and Duke is 8 miles apart. And one of the county hospitals had an opening the year that I started my residency. I wanted that job. Well, there's about 1,500 residents probably at Duke and 1,500 residents at Chapel Hill, all wanting moonlighting. I got first choice. You know, when I was in the service, some guys had to go to Vietnam. I had one paper. So what's the difference? Like if we'd say, what's the difference in any of you? Did you go to medical school?
Yes.
Did you? You? And I can see you all have 2 legs, 2 ears. What's the difference? We don't know who's the best doctor. But if you said he has a paper and you don't, well, I don't know. What are you going to pick it on? I mean, it's just a matter, you're at the bottom of your application, do you have a paper? And I remember when I wrote in, yes, I was an intern. I just got lucky on a paper. And it wasn't my idea. Somebody invited me to help them with something. And I happened to be the intern on the case. And so we got to go in and anyway, that one paper, at every interview I have, people say, tell me about your Pierre-Robin syndrome congenital dysformation. And then, you know, even here, I got promotions quicker than most of the other people. I got promotions, tenure quicker than most of the people. I got, you know, it has been a major gratification, and I've written papers with maybe 1,000 people, probably. Anyway, so that's sort of the reason for it. Let's talk a little bit about the papers. So the first thing, I guess, to talk about would be picking your topic. And how I pick the topic is I read the newspaper and I say, oh, there's a corona epidemic. I'm going to write about that. Oh, there's measles refusals. I'm going to write about measles refusals. Oh, RSV is killing children. Measles is killing children, whatever it is, school violence. GLP-1 receptors. GLP-1 receptors are now used for alcoholism. Alcoholism might increase problems with alcoholism is also being associated with cancer. This is what the Surgeon General Vivek Murthy said. Well, I read that stuff. I don't want to read about the epidemiology of rural Americans' depression. I mean, yeah, that's pretty interesting too, but that's not on my radar. If you write about the epidemiology of rural Americans versus measles refusals, the measles is going to get in the journal. More, I mean, if you write a Sentinel great paper, maybe the other one gets in too. But as a young writer, you want to have a success early in your career, and it's going to get in there. I mean, I used to have a whole lot of interest in tardive dyskinesia. Well, 30 or 40 years ago, tardive dyskinesia was a big topic. I bet you that you haven't paid too much attention to tardive dyskinesia in the last, or not as much as I did. And so tardive dyskinesia was a great topic 40 years ago. I'm not gonna write another paper on tardive dyskinesia. But I am gonna write about measles refusals and, we wrote another one on red dye number 5. Because as much as I don't know if the right word is hate, but I hate the new Robert Kennedy Jr. as our chief. But he did say red dye number 5 is 5, I guess it is not good. So we've already written a paper about red dye. Well, it wouldn't help me if I wrote a paper about the epidemiology of rural Americans, because that's not going to come up in my life. But red dye is hot right now. So that's how I pick the papers. Then you kind of get knowledgeable, because obviously you're not a world expert. So you pull out some of the papers. And one of the first things you need to do is decide who your audience is. Are you going to write a letter to the editor? Well, if this journal doesn't accept letters to the editor unless they're written about one of their topics. On other journals say, we like letters to the editor because we want to bring in new ideas. So you have to know which journal, and are you writing a letter or are you writing an editorial? Those gun articles, my two most recent were editorials. I didn't need to cite any references. I think I might have had one or two, but basically I was saying violence is bad. And here's the numbers. But so you have to know, if you just write a paper and you're finished it, okay, it's 3,000 words, and you send it to journal A and they only accept 2,000 words, well, then you're dead before you went in there. For me personally, when I was gunning to get quick promotion and tenure here, there used to be, the American Journal of Psychiatry had a section called brief reports, 1,500 words, one chart or one table, or not both, one chart or one table, and I think 5 references. It could have been 10. Well, if you wrote a 2,000 word paper with 2 charts, they didn't even look at it. And it might have taken them 4 months or 3 months to say no. And then you've wasted your time. I mean, not wasted, then you can trim it down, but then you have 6 months instead of the other. Anyway, know your audience, the type of article you want to write, and will it fit the journal that's most appropriate? Like, for example, this article here that I'm going to talk to you about on the cover letter, I thought, who probably has the most influence with patients? I thought, family doctors. Psychiatrists, nobody likes to talk about their psychiatrist, but everybody loves their family doctor. He takes care of my babies. He takes care of my grandmother. My dad had a heart attack. I broke my ankle. So I wrote it to, this article went to the American Family Physician. I also sent another one to the Journal of Family Practice. I wrote 2, but they're different. Remember also, in fact, if you look at number on this sheet here, number 17, you can never copy, you can only send it to one journal at a time. So you can't write this article, the American Journal of Psychiatry and the American Journal of Neurology. You can't do that. You can rewrite your paper. And every time you said, cephalgia is terrible, the other article have to say headaches are bad. You can never use the same words. If it's doctors do this, well, it's physicians do this. Headaches, no, it's cephalgia, or it's head pain, or you can never copy, and you can never even copy yourself. So if you wrote a paper today in the American Journal of Psychiatry, and now 5 years later, you want to write on that same topic, and you thought, oh, this was really a smart statement. Headaches are bad. I'll copy myself and I'll cite myself. No, because the minute it's accepted, you're no longer the owner of the paper. The owner of the paper is the journal. And you'll see there, we talk about the copyright ownership is transferred. It's kind of crazy to me. I write the paper, but I don't own my article. What do you get? Well, but if you want to have a published paper, that's the deal. You don't like driving down the right side of the road? Well, if you're in America, you got to. It's tough luck. You go to Britain, you can drive on the other side. But you have to, there's certain rules that you just have to do. Anyway, you figure out what journal, and when you have to read the instructions so carefully. For example, the references. must be in the style they want. I'm a peer reviewer.
Yeah.
And sometimes when I get a really long or complicated article, oh my gosh, this is gonna take me a month, a year to read this paper. Well, sometimes I'll look at the references, and if the references are inconsistent or bad, then I say, reject, send it back, fix your references. If I can't trust your references, how can I trust your science? I'm not even gonna read your paper. And you just click it out, and you don't, and that, if you really like the paper and click it out, then you can say, please fix these 22 things or whatever, 10 things, and then send it back. But if you say bad, no proofreading, can't trust your paper, then I just reject it. But you remember, every time you get a rejection from a peer review paper, they're supposed to send you the reasons. And sometimes you'll get 10 or 20 or 35 or 2 things that are wrong. Now, if they don't like your paper, it may be very little. They might just say, not well organized, bad grammar, fix it. But if you really do a pretty good job and they pretty much like it, you will be shocked how much time those reviewers give. I mean, I've had them where they'll say, reference 22 is a pretty good citation for your point in the text, but actually there's a better one. Or I can tell you what the original article is. That's a copy of an original article. Whoa, I mean, that's pretty good. I can tell you another, do any of y'all have an interest in ECT? Okay, if you ever heard of Harold Sackheim, I don't know if he's still alive, but when I was writing papers on ECT, he was one of the big gurus of ECT. Well, one time I sent a paper in and I cited him in the reference. His name is Sackheim, Sackeim. Well, I wrote it Sachheim. He rejected the paper. I'm not sure he was you never know who's your editor, but I thought probably he wouldn't have noticed that. But Sackheim, he would see his own name was misspelled. I wouldn't have noticed it, you wouldn't have noticed it, but Sackheim, I figured nobody else would have rejected my paper just on that little stupid thing. But it taught me a lesson. And the lesson was, make sure your references are correct and consistent. One of the problems that this age group has is you trust endnotes. And I see it all the time. I can honestly say to my writers, I have never once seen somebody using endnotes who has proper references, because this journal has a different style, that journal has a different style, and you didn't proofread it. This one has got period after it, but these two didn't. This one italicized the reference and this one didn't, and this one abbreviated, or they said the American Journal of Psychiatry and the next one was JAMA. What's JAMA? JAMA is not a word. The American Journal of Psychiatry was spelled out. I mean, you have to be consistent. And even if you're not consistent, if you can at least see they have tried to be consistent and proper, and okay, they made a mistake on 22 and 41, no problem. Tell them fix 41 and fix 42. Y'all know Ray Perry yet? Have y'all met him at the VA? Yeah, you know Ray Perry?
He moved out a couple of years ago.
Well, he's still on the faculty.
Yeah, but we don't interact with him at all.
Okay, well, he's been here. By the way, he is 85, and he passed his tenure review. How did he do that? By having at least one peer review paper a year. Now, he also had to teach some residents. He also had to see patients. He also had to give 2 lectures at Grand Round and 1 talk in Indiana or someplace. But one peer review paper a year shows his brain is still cooking. Oh, Bob Frierson, you know him. He also passed his thing, and he's nearly my age. He's probably about 78 or something. But he was a student when I came here. So he's, 5 or 6 years younger than me. But anyway, so the writing really does make a difference. Is kind of the point of it. But and the precision of it. The precision is another thing I wanted to talk about. If you say, I teach a writing seminar. Anybody that's welcome to come to my writing seminar on 4:30 every Wednesday in the Med Center one block away from this building. Anyway, I see writers that say, I treated her headaches. No, you didn't treat her headaches. You treated a lady who had headaches, you know, and I gave her medicine. No, you didn't give her medicine. You prescribed. If you meant I gave her to her, then I distributed it. But precision is important. I see that as a big problem in a lot of writing where people irritate. Remember, there's going to be 3 reviewers. Then there's the editor of the journal that might cast a vote. Like if 2 say yes and 1 says no, he might decide yes or no. If they all say no, he's probably going to say no. But he also, and the editor also decides, is this article suitable for our journal at this time? It could have. I've been rejected on a paper one time. He said, we loved your paper, but we just published 2 on this topic in the last 2 months, so we're not going to do another one next time. But so the editor decides, is it appropriate for our journal? Or this topic appropriate for our journal? And then there's a copy editor that goes, make sure your English is good. Make sure you're using precise words. Well, you want all 5 of these people to read your paper and say, I'm happy. I don't have to do too much work. And that's the key to getting it in. I think, and I'm sure that a lot of people wouldn't like me to say this, but I think the writing style is probably more important than the quality of the science. Because at least, I mean, if you do something stupid or don't say anything, of course, that's not going to get in. But if you have a pretty good paper and it's written pleasantly and they can just whip right through it and it's not got mistakes everywhere and it fits their style of the journal and they happen to have a spot for it, it's going to get in more likely than this wonderful paper. And I have a story about that too. There was a guy in this department on the faculty here years ago. Incidentally, he's one of those boys that went to Vietnam when I didn't. He's the same age as me, but he went to Vietnam. I stayed. Okay, so he comes to Louisville. He wants to be promoted. And he wrote a paper that was like 6,000 words or whatever it was on cerebral dominance. He was over at Norton with Casey and Mary Helen Davis and Dr. Wright. Okay, so he writes this fantastic paper, and it was a true work of art. But there was no journal in America that's going to accept a 6,000 word paper with 200 references or whatever. So he got rejected. And I said, well, you know, he came to me and said, what should we do? I said, break it in half. Just do right dominance. And then it'll be 50, you know, maybe 3,000 words might get in somewhere and only 100 references. And then 1 on left dominance. And maybe that would do, or you have to shorten the whole thing. And he said, no, my paper is so wonderful. I'm not going to touch it. But then he didn't get promoted. He didn't get tenure. He left. Anyway, if you look at all the tenured professors in this department, I can tell you every one of them has a CV this long, and most of the other ones don't. By the way, Courtney and Jennifer just wrote a paper, just in a newsletter, but even a newsletter is one thing more than the other guys have. And we're trying to just now expand it to another place. But, and it was pretty interesting. Oh, it was on, she was talking about their consultation to substance abuse people in the hospital. Well, that's pretty interesting. And that applies to the second place we were going to send it as well. So anyway, that's sort of it. Related to this issue comes avoiding pay for publish. This is something that didn't exist in my past, but has come up now. Pay for publish it's sort of like if you agree to take me to the airport today, that's really nice. If I call a cab and he says $50, well, that's just business. But if you take me because you like me or you don't, maybe you don't even know who I am, but you say, oh, you're in a rush, I'll take you to the airport right quick. That's wonderful. Pay for publish is like the taxi driver. Well, if you pay money, you get your paper in. And I have a personal memory of that. I was still working here when that stuff started. And one day I got an email. I get about 10 of these a week, at least, saying, if you publish a paper, if you send us a paper by, say, April the 28th, we'll publish it 2,000 words, $2,000. Well, they didn't say the 2,000, but I got something like this, and I had just written a paper with 2 or 3 of my other FMG doctors on gun violence. And this was a surgical journal, Trauma and Medicine or something like that. And they said, would you write an article about gun trauma? Well, sure. And they said, but get it to us in here in 3 weeks. Oh, well, okay, we've just written a couple of papers on this topic, so tell them, go do it. And I'll help you get it going. So we got it in, it got accepted, and they sent us a bill for $1,500. I said, wait a minute, I didn't know there's money. So, oh, you're supposed to have understood that. So I said, well, then I'll redact my paper, take it out. Well, no, it's already been published. I mean, in one day they published it, and then they sent me a bill. I said, well, okay, come to Kentucky and get the money. I ain't gonna do that. I feel cheated. I felt cheated.
Yeah.
And if you publish one of those kind of journals, I'm not sure some people would know the difference, but some people will. And the pay for publish is that's like an editorial in the newspaper or something. That's just your idea. It's not necessarily the truth. I mean, I could write an article about chlamydia treatment today and send it to somebody that's a pay for publish, and they'll probably take it because I'll say something reasonable. I mean, if I'm completely stupid, I won't. But I get invitations every day. We've noticed your expertise in ovarian cancer. I've never written a paper. I've never taught a single issue about, but they'll write to me. And if you put an article in our female gynecology journal, we will publish that thing for $2,000 by May 1st. It sounds very attractive, but don't do that. I don't think, well, you can do what you want, but I don't think. Another thing, if you four decide to write a paper together, important is to decide who's first, second, third, and fourth. So that, you know, if you're the main author, but he wrote it, let's say, he puts his name first, and then on the day you send it in, there's a fight, that's not good. You want to have happiness is what we've been talking about. Well, so you decide in the beginning, you want to be the first author, you want to be the correspondence author. Now, first author gets the most credit. If you're in my sort of position, you want to be correspondent. I want to prove that I'm not first author. And there's even a reverse prestige in being the last author, always. I'm always the last author. And that shows I'm facilitating younger people. I'm not just taking credit. Oh, and I can tell you, I'm not going to tell you who it is. There is a professor, not in this department. There is a professor in this medical school that's always first author. And I was the chairman of the promotions committee, you know, for 11 years and on that committee for 20. We used to laugh about him. And every time he came up for promotion, he said, okay, half of these articles are not even, he may not have even looked at. We just throw them out. He's just a joke. He's actually been caught for that, and it's been demoted somewhat. I don't remember exactly what it is because I'm not here all the time. But so you want to decide who's going to be the author. And there is a little bit of prestige in being the correspondence author, but you can also be the first author and the correspondence author. That's very common, especially let's say if you three do it, it's basically your idea, but he had the case and you did the blah blah, and you did something else. You might have added them on, but in your letter, you have to say everybody was a significant contributor to the output of this paper. And in fact, we might look at that for a minute. Look at this little thing on the cover letter. You can put the name of your article, the date, of course, the name of the manuscript, the title of the journal, the title of your paper, and it's for publication. If you don't say it's for publication, they might just think you're just sending it to them for their information. That it's not in submission somewhere else. You have to say that. And then you tell them where is it supposed to be. If you have a 3,000 word paper and say it's for a letter to the editor, it's not going to work. So you pick where you want it, or you can say put it where you want. Where, like on my editorial, sometimes I'll send an editor, say you can make this either an editorial or a letter. It's short enough to fit either one. No financial disclosures, you have to put that in there. All authors played a significant role in copyright ownership is you. I'll make adjustments, and then why you do it. And then I'm gonna have, how about if you read this one? This is an actual letter the cover letter that I wrote to the American Journal, whatever it was, American Family Physician or something. Why don't you read, what was the point there?
Sure. So the dear editor, manuscript title, do we value our kids more or the guns? What do you think? What should we do? Dot, dot, dot. Greetings, this manuscript is being submitted to American Family Physician, hopefully for publication.
So that's the publication.
School shootings are a tragic, important concern nowadays. And
So why would you write it?
here's my reason for submitting this topic. Family physicians have a special voice at attenuating this problem at a local or higher level, and for patients, since they are a trusted source of medical information and have a critical issue to widely disseminate.
So you're trying to hook them into your reason. You want them to like you.
I see this in my own role as a volunteer doctor in a free primary care practice clinic. It is an original paper and not in submission elsewhere. The paper is open for placement at your discretion and might fit best as a review paper or other type of article. I have no financial disclosures and the only person involved in the writing, and there are no funding related to the preparation of this paper. Copyright ownership will be transferred to you as you specify. Editorial adjustment will quickly be provided on a mutually agreed upon basis. Our U.S. medical community should receive this information. Hopefully this article will assist in the readership at improving medical care.
Yeah. So I mean, that's kind of the way I do letters to the editor, cover letters. And every one of these points should be in your cover letter. I mean, you can just send it in, here it is, and see what happens, but this is more likely to catch their interest. You're buttering them up a little bit. It's a family physician oriented paper. Do I have any expertise? I'm not a neurosurgeon. And even if I was, I said, even though I'm a neurosurgeon, I see this in my practice or something. You want to have a reason for it that they can say, be nodding there. You want them to be nodding this way, not this way. And the same thing when they read your paper. Is it precisely written? Is it carefully written? Is the English good and all that sort of stuff? So the next point down there was getting started. For most people, to do a new project, the hardest part is getting started. And to me, if I'm going to write a paper, I mean, even just writing the title down, even if I change the title, then at night you wake up and you think, oh yeah, I had an idea about that. I mean, it gets your juices started. If you say, I'll do it tomorrow. Well, tomorrow is tomorrow, and then tomorrow is tomorrow, So, to me, that has been a big thing in my life. Whenever I start a paper, and if I wake up in the middle of the night to pee or whatever, or something comes into my brain, oh, I want to take a quick look at that. Or I'll write it down on a little piece of paper by the bedside. Put this in there, And that has been an immense help for me, because once your juices turn on, then you want to do it, or at least for me, I do anyway. It makes me want to. And I mean, even I have a new job for a Kentucky journal that is a historical automobiles. Well, when I write the title, I'm going to write an article about, hello, my paper this month was on 1946 Chevrolet, Plymouth, and Ford. Well, once I wrote that down, I couldn't stop. And while I was on this trip with my grandchildren every afternoon, before they got home from school, I had a few minutes to myself. I started working on my next paper because I got to have it done by the end of April for May. So I started working on, in this case, a steam car called Locomobile. There's a combination of automobile and locomotive, Locomobile, anyway. But anyway, so writing down the introduction or the title or something even if you just put your name, headache, and you're going to write about headache, you've already committed that I want to do something. One other thing that helps me a lot and I do this on paper, you might do it another way, but, so if I'm gonna have 5 articles, okay. Here they are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. So I read article number 1. I'm gonna write an article about ECT. Okay, so I pull one of Sackheim's articles up and I just title it A, and Sackheim on ECT. Then I put a summary of what he said. Then I go to the next article, Salim. This is his article about results, summary, and that's B, C, D, E. So when I'm writing the paper, and I say 25% of the people getting ECT get better. Oh, that was this article. I put a C there, not a number yet, because if you change the order of the paragraphing, then you're completely messed up. Just a C. But then also the other reason for that is I'm remembering where I got it when I wrote it. But if you, at the end of the paper, you say, well, where did I get that? Oh, I don't remember what was it. This paper? Oh, what? Now I have to read all my papers again and figure out who said it. Or what part of it he said. So I have that already covered. I already have the reference in my paper that with each sentence. And remember, any sentence that has numbers in it has to be referenced. You know, if you say headaches hurt, you don't need a reference. Everybody knows that. But if you say 20% of the people in America have headaches, well, then you have to have a reason for that. And you have to cite somebody else's work or your own work. It could be you could cite your own work. You couldn't copy your own words, but you could cite your own paper. Some people don't like that. Editors don't. If you do it once in the beginning, maybe, but if you keep doing it, then then it's not really referenced. It's just your ideas. But anyway, but that way you don't have to read your whole papers over again at the end and struggle or get frustrated and quit because you know where each thing came. Then, so if you're supposed to, when you get to the final point, okay, you have to number your references in sequential order. 1, 2, sequential numerical order. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can't go 1, 2, 5. You can go 1, 2, 3, 1 or 1, 2, 1, but you can't go 1, 2, 4. So then it's easy. You're looking at your paper now and it's C, D, C, A, B, J, F. Well, that's easy. Then when you're finally ready and you proofread your paper enough that you're not going to move the paragraphs around or some sentence, this sentence before that sentence. And that is something that I see in my own writing. I've been writing longer than probably your parents have been alive. And when I write a paper, and I go over it the next day and say, who was the idiot that wrote this paper? It is terrible. It's disorganized. I said A before B or B before A. This is just awful. And I'm constantly moving things up and down or improving the flow of the paper. So I'm going to talk about diagnosis, then I'm going to talk about treatment, then I'm going to talk about prognosis, then I'm going to talk about, results or something, where it's in a nice orderly fashion. But your references are all mixed up because it could be this paper was first and that's second, Then you put, when you're almost done, then you put in 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 1, 3, 4, 1, 5, 1, 2, whatever you want. And then if you want to do 2 through 4, then you write 2-4. And most journals like a subscript, but if you put a subscript to there are some journals that want in parentheses at the end of the sentence, which I think is a terrible way because it distracts you. Some are even worse. They want to say Lippmann 1962, Salim 1978. That's even worse. But if that's the journal you're going for, you have to kiss a little butt sometimes. You have to do what they want. But I prefer the superscript. You know how there's that little thing at the top on the computer, and you can click it up there, and then it makes a superscript for you. And I usually write my papers with a superscript unless I know that journal doesn't want that. And that probably wouldn't kick you out if you did it the wrong way, but it's taking a chance. They said, he didn't read the instructions to the author, so why should I read this paper? If I can't trust him on that, how can I trust him on this? And It's pretty simple. Yeah, so that's probably the most important point there about how to reference. And, oh, the other thing, if you've done it all, and now one of the other big advantages, if I write a paper, I want Apology to read it. He's never read it before. He can find all sorts of mistakes because he doesn't know what I'm going to say next. So an outside reader can help you. Now, if you need to reorder your reference numbers, I'm going to say you can't do that by yourself. You know, I write a lot of papers with Ray Perry, and he usually writes these 3,000 or 4,000 word papers with 50 references. Well, if 22 is now going to become 6 and 7 is going to become 51, and you get mixed up, then all of a sudden you've mixed up. Now you don't remember which one was which. And how I do it, I always do that with another person. One person has a piece of plain sheet of paper. I'm over here reading the paper and I said, okay, bubble sheet, number 6 is now 22. And number 7 is 38. Whoa. You know, then if I make a mistake, we can go back to his thing and we know, oh, 38 changed to 22 or whatever it was. And if you just have 5 references, you can probably do it on your own. But if you're getting a Ray Perry type 50 reference paper and you have significant changes, because remember, when you took when number 6 becomes 50, that means number 7 is now 6. And 7 is not, you know, whatever it is, 10 is really 9. So then everything changed. And that's just too many things to remember at once. It's just impossible. Oh, and then you have a copy of your original references over here too. So you can look at what was it. So you see the original references, what you're changing, and then what you think you need to do. So we've got a couple of minutes. Anybody have a comment?
I think that's pretty good, like with the EndNote, I think the only, I know it's not persistent or like constant or precise, but with EndNote, sometimes if you have that, it can help you just with the numbers.
Yeah, but the end notes are always wrong. I mean,
I know how do you produce it at the end, you have to do it manually, but like just to keep track
I
of
do it all.
numbers, I think. I know.
because I think that the end notes slow me down.
Mhm.
You think they speed you up, but I think you're wrong.
It's just a checker, if we're just using it on numbers.
I mean, the end notes are good to get the reference off of some other place,
Mhm.
but then it's gonna be in the wrong style. I mean,
Yeah.
they're gonna abbreviate, and this one didn't abbreviate, and that one does a shortening and another one example is like the et als. Okay, some journals want you to have all 10 authors. A lot of them don't allow that many authors anyway. Let's say a lot of people will say have 5 or 6 authors. Well, I forgot my point.
That it's all like.
Oh yeah, the et als. If you list some journals want every author, which is really ridiculous. When you're looking up an article, the only author that counts is the first one. And you don't even need the author's name, really. If you know the name of the journal, volume, number, and page, that's all you need. And you certainly don't need to know who the third author was. It's totally ridiculous. And what I do, because it fits most journals, I usually plan on three plus et al. Y'all know what et al is, everybody? Where you say Smith, Klein, French, comma, et al. Dot. Or a 4th article. So you have 4 names, and it could be Smith, Klein, French, and Jones, or Smith, Klein, French, and et al. Rather than 2 more names, because what does that do? That doesn't help anybody look the article up. It actually makes it harder to read, harder to print, harder to transcribe. I mean, I can't think of any advantage. And you do read in major journals like AJP or New England Journal, where there'll be 15 or 20 authors. I mean, that does appear. Well, that's just totally ridiculous to have author number 12 listed there. You know, who cares? Nobody's ever going to look at their name. It's a little bit like at your journal clubs here. I see people, they'll say, and here's my articles. And you flash it on the screen for 10 seconds. Are you going to read any of those? What's number 6 say? Can you read it? There you go. You had a chance to read it. It's just ridiculous to put that up there. And having extra names is equally ridiculous. You really just need the first name, but you gotta, usually you have to do 3 or 4. Or if there's only 1 or 2, I mean, that's good enough. So anyway, that might be about it.
Well, thank you, Dr. Bird. See you next week.
Anybody think they might want to write a paper? Maybe.
Yeah, I think.
It is a major boon in my life. You know, I'll tell you one more story about what articles do for you. I got out of going to Vietnam and I got all the moonlight jobs I wanted over everybody else. But when I was here, at one point, I guess it was probably, it might have been Schwab, I don't know if it was Tasman or Schwab said, I want to help psychiatry department get promotions. I want somebody to be our nominee to the promotions committee. Well, I don't know how they picked it, and I'm surely not smarter or better than anybody else, but my CV was probably better than most of them. I got picked. Okay. Usually most people in the medical school, when they vote for who's going to be on the promotions committee, you vote for the guy you know, right? Are you going to vote for some ophthalmologist? Probably not. You probably vote for mostly psychiatrists, and then maybe you know 1 or 2 internists or whatever, a derm guy. But most people vote for their department. Well, somehow or another, I stood for election 7 times in a row, and I won, beating the internists and the surgeons 7 times in a row until I hit term limit. And that's when the dean said, 7 is enough. But how did that happen? I mean, am I better than the internists? Of course not. They probably knew more about medicine than I did. But my CV was bigger, and that's the only explanation I have. And then in those 21 years, I ran for president of the organization 11 times. And I was the president 11 times, or the chairman. And I think the only reason for that, again, is that I had a bigger CV. So anyway, that's what CVs will do for you. One way or the other.
Thank you so much.